just know how it started, if you don't mind starting just at the beginning in what I believe was 1986.
The beginning of the business actually started due to limited resources, and we have to compete locally and find our niche in the manufacturing space. We decided to do it differently. We would like to be more concerned on sourcing of our materials, the usage, the wastage, and find a better way of doing it right. So that's how our business has started. We started together, me and Cathy. And at the beginning of our business, it was already thought that we have to start with being sustainable. I mean, even from the design point of view of the products that we're making, we already consider how it's going to be made, what material to use, and what are the process involved.
When did you start realizing, okay, we're starting to get an edge in the market? So basically, when did it start paying off?
Going back 25 years ago, it was not an easy thing. When we display our products and tell them that this is coming from a scrap or a waste or a timber residue, whatever, cast away, they would laugh and said, "Oh, you must be kidding me. And who would buy this?" I mean, so they were surprised, but still they were not believing at all. They said, it's not going to sell. But as we started to convince our buyer, and they realized that it is something that they have not seen before. And when they think about how the process was made, it drew more interest. And that's not it. The rest was history. But it was difficult to convince. But later on, as we continue to develop and they saw the product, the material in the market already, especially that the first customer was a very known customer. So they started to believe.
I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more on how you lifted the talent of the people that work with Nature's Legacy as well through this discovery process.
You know what's interesting, while you were saying that, the first thing that came to my mind is how Filipinos are fairly familial. We have familial traits. We're very hospitable. It's definitely a matriarchal society here for the Philippines. And, growing up, family is such an embedded value for anyone here. So education in a familial sense, it's, Filipino families, they really work hard just to make sure their kids, grow up and be successful for that generation to prosper. And translating that for the company with Nature's Legacy and emphasis on Nature's Legacy, like the legacy part is a big emphasis here.
Our facility actually is located in the countryside. And the first thing that we did when we moved to the countryside was to make sure that we employ the local people, teaching them the values that we do and sharing them where we want to go is the turning point for these people. And what we have taught them in sustainability and maximizing resources also went to their home. Can you imagine that even at home, they educate their children, they practice sustainability or minimize wastage? So it means that doing is really important because they see what is the effect of what you do.
Cathy, can you tell us a little bit from the female perspective in looking at this industry, and has it become easier for you? What is it like to have this mixed workforce with all the women in it? Like, has it been an advantage for you in pursuing sustainability, having so many women in the workforce? Maybe you can give us that perspective. I'd love that.
So, because we have the ample space, we dream right away. This is the factory. Then 5 to 10 minutes walk will be their housing. The original concept is to be near to work and home so that their money will be more food on the table rather than on transportation expense. That was the original motive. So as a mother, as a female, it just happened naturally. So being a mother, it's not teaching them spend your money wisely, take care of your kids. It's not money alone. So all these things, simple things, but very important and essential in having a good family, work, balance of work and family.
What have you put in place as owners to make sure that, every step of the way at the expansion of the business, you can adhere to your values, you can adhere to your methods? What have you done in terms of governance around the sustainability now that there are, better benchmarks, I would say, in the world? Now that you're not the only ones anymore, maybe, or the only known case to yourselves. Like, how does it work now?
So the governance really involves the values. However, the long-term aspect of it, because we are still family owned, we're figuring out how do we become relevant in a global market. We're exporting, and that means that retail brands purchase, and we come off as a white label company. However, we're trying to build our own story, lift it up so that people would appreciate the value out of it.
Did you ever get discouraged along the way? I would say is the big question, like, where you felt like, okay, now we're just trying too much to do it differently than the rest. Like, tell us about that.
Because we remain focused on the belief of what we do is for the good, it won't let us back out. We have to continue, and only to find out that they will come back and said, yeah, you're right. I think we were not ready yet during that time, but now you're right.
Actually, there were a lot of naysayers. It's so, sometimes you feel so bad, betrothed, and sometimes you become rebellious in a sense, because there was a time that whole industry lobby against us. It's a David and Goliath fight. But we never were afraid because we know that what we are doing it's just plain common sense, good intention. So we were never afraid because it's so good to help.
What would be Nature's Legacy's advice to those business owners around the world that would like to adhere more to standards such as yours?
Most of the time, it's either it starts with a leader. If it's not the leader, usually someone from CSR or HR that's completely passionate and is willing to challenge the status quo. But however, you still have to go back to the culture of the company, and if the company is willing to even think about that. And we're seeing more of the hard-headed ones that are really trying to push the pedal and saying we don't need to change. But because of the resources, they realize that it's definitely finite. There's definitely limited resource. And if they don't change, disruption is going to happen. So if you're building something for this generation, you might as well think about the 3 next generations to come. And that will give you a lot of incentive and motivation to change things internally and externally.
I think the first thing you will do is look at what's around you. Capture that low-hanging fruit. What I'm saying is it's a small step to sustainability. I mean, you can have a market develop just within your area to start with, then expand to another market, or you have one product to begin with, You don't have to reinvent the world.
Mhm.
And then start to create yourself. You have to have a certain mark that somehow you leave behind.